What is going on, my broskiis? My name is Toadskii, back again, here to bring you guys yet another One Piece Treasure Cruise video. So today we are here with a tier list video, and this is just a run through of last month's tier list, because I'm not going to redo this month's tier list, considering there aren't really many new characters that we really need to be talking about this month. But of course, let's get into my personal criteria of the way that I rank these characters. So I mainly take precedence of their captain effect. If they've got a really strong captain, I definitely rank them a lot higher than other characters. And there are other categories that go into that as well. Obviously, the power of the units, how much damage are they outputting, the speed of the unit, how fast can they clear content, how reliable they are at clearing that content, what is their clear rate as a captain, do they have content that they literally cannot clear as a captain because of certain conditions, and then also the usability and versatility. So can they be like input into teams? Can they be injected into teams even where they're not boosted completely on that team? They're just that useful of a unit that you just want to put them on nearly every team that you put on because they're just that good. All of those different factors combined, plus their captain effect, which I personally take a higher priority over their special ability. But honestly, depending on the situation, you know, if you've got a really strong captain, a lot of the time that can just carry you through a lot of content anyway. And then it is dependent on what type of subs you have. But if we're looking unit to unit, unit by unit basis, I definitely think that you should really consider their captain effect to be a good reason as to why a character would be considered better than another unit. But either way, let's go ahead and get into it. So this is the same tier list that I had from last month. I made it, you know, unit for unit, the exact same, with the additions of Kaido and Big Mom. Now, that's another thing I wanted to talk about. I'm going to leave it up to you guys in the comment section. Do you think I should split the versus units up into two separate units? Or do you think that, you know, because even though you get one of these units and one may be better than the other, do you think that you should still consider it as one unit? I was talking with my girl Carissa about it, and she thinks you should probably split up into two units, but I'll leave that up to you guys as well. I'm fine with either or, because, you know, wherever you rank the best version of the unit is where you rank the versus unit as one, right? So either way, like, it doesn't really make that big of a difference, but I thought I'd leave it up to you guys anyway. So, let's go ahead and break it down and kind of just go through and see if any of these units really need to be bumped up into the tier list, because these units that are not on the tier list currently are just units that are considered like just bad, or they're units that just see hardly any play. They're too niche to clear content. Like this V1 Mihawk, for example, like you basically will never use him, but he was actually a ridiculously useful unit for the recent raid boss, the Shinobu and Onami. So I guess technically you could probably bump him up into this lowest tier, because in terms of usability, yeah, sometimes you may need to use this Mihawk. He's actually kind of good to clear content. I mean, this Hody Jones, you know, you're not really going to be using him that often, but sometimes you need 90% damage reduction for something. Or even if you look at like the new Blackbeard that arrived on Japan, this Hody Jones is a phenomenal unit for that new Blackbeard. So, you know, when that new Blackbeard drops, I might actually put him on the tier list, but as for now, probably not. We've got a bunch of other units here that are like really old, like this Usopp Guaranteed Delay sometimes is useful, not all the time though, and a couple of these units have some pretty good supports, like this Time Skip Luffy here. They actually have really good supports. Some of them are good in Pirate Rumble, of course, but no, we're not talking about Pirate Rumble here today. This Kuzan sometimes we'll see play. This guy has a good support, this V1 Zoro. This guy sometimes. Bato's got a great support. Buggy obviously has his uses. Sanji sucks, Magellan sucks, a lot of these units suck. Brook has his uses as well, but I'm not really going to put him on the tier list because of his revive mechanic. Good support here, good support here. Jack has his uses as well. Sometimes you use this guy. This guy has a great support, sometimes used in content, but not really that much, but obviously really good in Pirate Rumble. We've got V1 Big Mom, who's kind of outdated. No. Sometimes Shirahoshi Rainbow slots are very useful, but I mean, Shirahoshi Mancherry has a little bit more usage depending on the content, which you can't see right here. Shirahoshi Mancherry, I actually might change her position in a little bit. And then like this Lucci's bad, this guy's pretty bad, and then Kaido versus Big Mom, which we'll get to a little bit later on in the video. But as for tier 5, do any of these units need to change positioning? Now, I think Lucy is still solid, Judge is still solid. I mean, Doflamingo will essentially never see play until like, I don't know, maybe he gets a 6+ or an expansion that would make him usable, I guess, but not really. You're never really going to see too much play from this guy anymore, unfortunately, because when he first debuted, he was like the most broken legend in the game. But no, how times change. Luffy Ace are pretty bad. They could almost drop off the tier list completely. They're pretty bad. This guy has like his niche uses. Jinbei is fine. all these units are kind of fine. I'm not a fan of these V2 slashes, but they are still okay. You can use them, I guess, but they're not great. This Akainu is okay as well. Like, mono strength is really solid right now in the game. There's some extremely powerful units that we have. He has a fantastic support as well. So all those reasons why he kind of just stays on the tier list. Shirashi Manshire, I kind of want to bump up to tier 4. Because of Kaido versus Big Mom, this unit actually has a lot of usage on like the best legend, or essentially one of the best legends in the game. So I think for that reason, they should probably be bumped up. I mean, look, they can still be used on like any of these teams essentially, but this unit is still pretty solid. And I think I kind of, you know, underrated them in previous lists, but they are still solid. I don't think they're the most broken unit in the game. They're not essential for clearing content, but sometimes you just kind of need it, right? So I'll leave her there for now, but she's definitely not, like, I don't consider her to be one of the best subs in the game. I think she's okay. You don't need her to clear content. Definitely not a requirement, but she's okay. You know, sometimes it's nice to have. Onami with a 6+ on Japan's really good, but currently not so good. And then Robin, no, I'm not a big fan of Robin, even though I did use her for one of my showcases, I think, for Kaido versus Big Mom. So I did use her recently, but she's pretty cool. We've got this Arlong Crew. Arlong Crew, I guess, kind of deserves to go up as well. Again, he shouldn't really be this low on the list. It's just that there's a lot of other units that you would rather use over this guy. I guess if like special reverse and like if you get dealt with special reverse, he can be used to kind of help you with that. Plus he's an attack booster on top of that. So technically, yeah, you could find some space on your crew for him, but like not a unit you're going to use all the time. Very similar to a lot of these units here. Rayleigh, again, like super niche. Kung Fu Luffy is usable, and this guy is like super niche as well. So I think like tier 5 kind of cements itself as being like a tier of characters that are, you know, kind of mid-tier, a little bit outdated, and kind of niche units. Moving on to tier 4, these are where the characters start to get a little better. I think Tezora is fantastic. I love this unit so much. I really hope that the movie legends get a 6+ at some point, because the movie legends with a 6+, specifically this guy, could be kind of wild. So I'm looking forward to whenever that happens. Judge is okay. He's acceptable. This guy is okay, acceptable. I actually recently limit broke expand this V1 Katakuri, but I haven't really had too many opportunity to, you know, build teams with him and use him in content, but I definitely want to make an additional showcase for V1 Katakuri now that I've limit broke expand him. So that is something that I may want to look into. Plus, I believe actually that Big Mom versus Kaido actually work with this guy, because I think he boosts Driven and Powerhouse, if I'm not mistaken. So you could actually build a team with V1 Katakuri with a hybrid captain of one of these two. So that actually could be kind of nice. I might have to look out for that. Either way. This Lucy is basically a better version of this Lucy, but not by much, really, but it's okay. Capone is acceptable, and then these two we just bumped up. I think this tier is also kind of fine. Tier 3, though, is where we start to get better units, and a lot of really good subs are here as well. We've got Rayleigh and Corazon. These units see a lot of play, amazing utility they have, plus they both have essentially the same support, but for slightly different units, of course. But these characters are essentially the best supports in the game, and I know Corazon is recently going to be arriving in the Metal Exchange. Make sure to go ahead and pick him up if you do not have him, because he is an essential unit for some pieces of content, so make sure to go ahead and get that done. We have V2 Shanks, who's still really solid. Like, I don't see him going down, I don't see him going up. He's just extremely solid. And then the two V2 Admirals are fine. Whitebeard Marco is outdated. This guy's kind of outdated. Cracker, who's actually looking like to be the next 6+ on Japan, so I'm super excited to see how they're going to deal with that. So Cracker getting a 6+, really looking forward to that. I really hope that is confirmed to be the case, but it's all just speculative at the moment. But there's a pretty high probability that this is going to be the next 6+ on Japan. We've got V2 Big Mom, who is still pretty good in Kizuna clashes and stuff like that. Outside of that, not really too much. I guess for 10-star difficulty GARP challenges, this Big Mom is really nice to use her switch effect, guaranteed slot, 1.5 attack, 1.5 orb boost to herself. Just by herself will just enable you to just kill mini-bosses so much easier. So that's kind of nice for that, but her special is like just okay, especially if you fall below 50%. It's essentially a useless special, so that's a bit of a problem, right? Nami's still solid. Komurasaki, pretty underrated. I mean, almost could bump up to this tier. I kind of want to bump Komurasaki up because I think she's like ridiculously good. Chopper is still good. His captain effect is like Rainbow 3.5, obviously cotton candy boosting, but just because he has that utility, or I wouldn't really call it utility, but he has the, you know, kind of like the toolbox captain where he can enable you to get those additional cotton candy drops. Just because he does that, I don't want to put him up because that's not going to help you clear content, obviously. His special is nice. It's really good. Great utility, but I don't want to put him up to tier 2. I don't think he deserves tier 2. We've got Nami Robin, who is actually a good unit, but I'm not a big fan of this unit personally, and obviously this is pretty subjective. I just don't like using this unit, especially as a captain. I think this unit is a terrible captain, but you know, definitely can have some uses. Pudding's pretty good actually. I like if you would have asked me when they first released, who would you prefer, Pudding or Nami Robin? I would have said Nami Robin in a heartbeat. But as time's gone on, if you ask me now, who would I rather have? I would definitely take Pudding, like 100% of the time. This Pudding is so ridiculously useful. Her captain effect is bad though. I just don't like her captain effect. It is usable, I guess, but personally, I don't like her captain effect. I just think it's a little weak. And it's mono int as well, which is kind of annoying for being that weak, so it is what it is, whatever. Marco's great though, you know, healing 2 times orb boost. It's acceptable. It's nothing broken, but it's just a good special. We've got Kuzan, who is a chain boosting captain. He's the best of the chain boosting captains of his type. And just because of that, I'm going to leave him here. He can definitely clear a lot of good content for sure. He's just really annoying to use. I'm not really a big fan of him, honestly. We've got this Hawkins here. Super type Hawkins, unfortunately, like nothing too broken. He can actually pretty much clear everything in the game. But according to my criteria, of course, he is a captain that is one of the slowest in the game, and for that reason, I don't really want to rank him too high compared to that. He's actually really annoying to use as well. Like, he's definitely not the easiest captain to use. You have to plan out your team pretty well, and you have to ensure that you have the right supports active as well in order to use his super type special. So that's all very important to make sure that you use this guy correctly. And for that reason, we'll leave him in tier 3. Garb's still pretty solid, use him all the time. Smoker is also a pretty garbage super type character, honestly. He's just, really poorly designed unit, honestly. This Rayleigh's pretty good as a sub, and Jinbei is just another one of those units that, like, he's not a unit that anyone really uses, but if you do use him, he's still fine. You can build pretty good teams with him. He's got, he boosts a lot of different colors and stuff, and you can use lots of different hybrid captains with him too. Tier 3, I don't think anything really needs to change here aside from Komurasaki bumping up. Let's move on to Tier 2. We've got Carrot. Carrot's acceptable. She didn't really change too much throughout this month. We've got V2 Katakuri, who, man, as time goes on, the less and less I use him. I kind of want to bump him down, but I know that a lot of people can still use him to clear content, which is nice. But he's really slow, dude. Like, he's ridiculously slow, but in terms of power and all the other categories, he's pretty good. And, like, he can even run him on a team where he's not even boosted, and you can still use him to just wave clear enemies and give you huge tap timing bonus to just clear content. And I know a lot of people did use him for the recent Nami Shinobu raid as well, so I guess I'll leave him where he is. Sanji Judge are great. I love them. I might be a bit biased towards them. I say that every month, but I love this unit. Halu and Ace is strong. Luffy, Zoro, they just kind of do what they do. They don't really change. They're fine. A little bit weak in the captain effect. I'm not a big fan of their captain effect, but their switch effect and special are great. Quickbeard's fine. He didn't really change too much either. Super type Sabo's fine. Kid's fine. Sweet Commander's fine. I'm not a fan of this character. Dude, I hate this character, man. This was such a poorly designed unit. I might have touched on it last week, but they could have done something similar to what they did with Odin, because Odin's special is an orb boost to Strength, Slash, and Free Spirit, which are all the class and colors that he is. Whereas Shanks, he's a color affinity booster only to Cerebral and Slasher, where I don't know why they didn't decide to just make him an int / a cerebral color affinity booster. It would have made his special much easier to use, because he's a super type character that boosts int, but then his special boosts cerebral and slasher. It's just bizarre, very bizarre. I don't understand it. His super type special is very hard to proc as well. Lots of things about him that make him bad. He was obviously really good for the Kizuna Clash that he came out for, but outside of that, he's pretty mid. And I know a lot of people out there have used him for content. He can clear some high difficulty content because he's got healing capabilities. He's got a pretty decent captain, honestly. But his super type special is bad. I mean, there's no beating around the bush there. It's a bad super type special. Then we've got Komurasaki, who I think is amazing. I think this unit is super underrated. One of the best quick legends in the game, honestly. Tier 1 is a huge list. Definitely the highest here, but like, out of all these units here, I don't really think any of these deserve to be bumped up to the highest tier. Some people say Odin. Odin has amazing effects, but I'm not the biggest fan of his captain effect. Like, if you would ask me who would I rather use as a captain, Snake Man or Odin, I would take Snake Man in a heartbeat. Like, Snake Man's super type special is easier to proc, and I think he provides more to your team than what Odin can. But remember that Odin does have the Wano slots, which are super unique to him. And he's an orb booster for multiple turns, and obviously has great synergy with Roger. So there's lots of things to like about both these units, but I think overall, I think Snake Man is a better strength super type character. And as I said in my previous tier list, I wanted to keep tier 0 to a relatively small list. So I don't really want to bump anyone up unless if they strongly deserve it. And I don't think any one of these units here kind of do strongly deserve it compared to what we already have in tier 0. I think the Halloween units are like, they're like one of my favorite combinations to use in the game. They are so ridiculous, man. I haven't had too much opportunity this month to use Jumbo 66, but I love them a lot, especially when you got characters like this and characters like this and characters like this, characters like this. Like, they so much synergy with some of the best Psy units in the game, which is great. The V3 Kainu, I don't really think he doesn't deserve to go down, but he definitely doesn't deserve to go up either. He's still super solid. Sober Mask, like, I like Sober Mask a lot. I don't like his captain effect, but as a sub, he's pretty, like, unparalleled. There's, like, no other characters in the game that do what he does to his extent. So I think for his uniqueness as a sailor and can be put onto a lot of good teams, Powerhouse, Free Spirit, he's a quick unit, or Rainbow teams, for example, he's a good unit, man. He's super, super solid. Mihawk Piranha are great, that they don't deserve to go to tier 0. Their captain effect isn't as good as that, but their special and switch effect, obviously super unique. Super type Katakuri is like the god. He's the int god for Kizuna clashes. The fact that you can get guaranteed delay and then an attack boost and a conditional boost, whereas a lot of other teams aren't able to do that, is ridiculous, man. Plus a 5x captain. Such a good unit. Plus he's Katakuri. Katakuri actually has a lot of decent supports these days, so I think Katakuri definitely still deserves tier 1. Blackbeard is a really slow legend, but in all other categories can be used to just absolutely decimate content, so he definitely still deserves to be here. Sugar, I think, is super solid, and I think is probably one of the contenders that many people would kind of think that could be in that tier 0 ranking. I definitely agree with that. She's really good, but I do think the characters that I've currently listed in tier 0 are currently the best in the game. I think that, you know, you could probably change the position of these two. But I think many people agree that these are probably the best units in the game, right? So I think now that we've kind of gone through the list and determined if any characters need to move positions, I don't really think anyone needs to move up or down at this point. I'm pretty comfortable with all of these units here. The only one that I'd probably consider from tier 1 that may ever get bumped down would maybe be Sabo Koala, because they just aren't that useful right now. I mean, the switch effect's still pretty solid, right? It's still pretty good switch effect, really good for high difficulty content still, but I would rather take nearly every other legend in this list over Sabo Koala at this point. They're just not a character that you need at the moment, but I think at the moment they're still kind of fine to be in tier 1. So let's have a look at Kaido and Big Mom. So Kaido and Big Mom, now we have separated here between the two units, and you know, you could definitely put them together as one and kind of work from there, but it's kind of hard to kind of list them, because one of them, being Big Mom, is really good for long form content and high difficulty content because she has such a significant health boost, and her versus gauge effect allows you to heal back a lot of your health that you would have lost. Whereas Kaido is more of an offensive based unit with, whenever you launch that versus special, everything dies. Just everything dies for those next 3 turns. And the really cool thing about Versus effect is that the enemy cannot remove them. So remove beneficial effects, remove accumulated values. None of those effects from the enemy can remove those Versus gauge abilities. So that's a really cool mechanic, right? One thing about this Versus Big Mom that I have kind of identified whilst using her throughout, you know, me pulling her, is that when you launch that Versus effect, which makes her normal attacks bypass defensive effects, so if the enemy has like a barrier, and it's like a 10-hit combo barrier, for example, when Big Mom attacks, it goes through the barrier, but it doesn't remove the condition of the barrier. So it actually works very similar to the old school version of barrier penetration before we had that new update, where the character not only does the damage through the barrier, but also removes some of that barrier's condition. This Big Mom Versus effect doesn't do that, so that's a huge bummer, and I don't know if that is programmed to be that way, or if they just forgot to change it to be like the newest version of barrier penetration. But I just thought I'd want to point that out, because I have noticed that is actually a thing, and there was a piece of content that I was playing with this unit, and I actually nearly lost because of that effect. So that was actually a pretty big bummer. I hope that gets changed, or if it is supposed to be programmed that way, then that's obviously a huge downside to the unit. So, which one do I personally think is better? I definitely think Kaido is a much better unit, but you gotta remember, normal attacks only is quite a prevalent debuff in the game. And when you're inflicted with normal attacks only, all of the benefits from Kaido are essentially lost. His Versus effect does nothing at that point. His Captain effect, where you cut the enemy's health by 20% at the end of each turn, is a pointless effect. So, obviously that's a bit of a downside, but you gotta remember, outside of that, He's a 5 times captain. He still has a health boost. He makes tandem slots appear more often. He treats them beneficial. His special ability changes block recovery to the tandem slots as well. He gives you attack boost turn 1 to his whole team, and if you hit your 3 perfects, you get the orb boost in the following turn. So obviously all of these effects here are really good. So I think Kaido is definitely one of the best units in the game. Where would I honestly put him though? I think he's better than Luffy Sanji. I think he's definitely better than Luffy Sanji. But you got to remember that Luffy Sanji are kind of similar to the Big Mom side of things, because definitely built around enduring, and it's just based around trying to heal back your health and not die. So for that reason, I think that Big Mom is kind of similar to Luffy Sanji in a way, and that Kaido is more offensively based, kind of similar to Roger. Now, between these two, who do I think is actually the best? Do I think Roger is still better than Kaido? It depends on the content. It's hard to say, because I actually, if you ask me who would I prefer to use as a captain, I honestly would prefer to use Roger as the captain. But if normal attacks only is on the field, yeah, Roger would be the #1 go-to captain. If there's no normal attacks only, and you don't get punished for health cutting, then Kaido is going to be my go-to 100% of the time. That versus effect is essentially like you get this version of Kaido's effect. You get this version of Kaido's effect for 3 turns, plus you get a massive single target hit to the highest HP enemy. It's like 3 times the normal attack damage that he inflicted, and that all gets launched after his captain effect launches. So it does a 20% health cut, and if you're running double Kaido, it's 20% health cut, 20% health cut, then it wave clears 500 times his attack, and then the highest HP enemy left after that gets hit with 3 times his normal attack damage. At that point, when you launch his versus effect, everything is dying that turn, pretty much, so long as the enemy doesn't have like an absurd amount of HP. But of course, all of that gets negated if normal attacks only is present. So I think currently I would probably put Roger slightly above Kaido, but not by much. Let me tell you that, not by much. Now we've got Big Mom. Now, where would I honestly rank Big Mom? Now, after using the 2 units, I definitely prefer Kaido. I think Big Mom is a really good unit, and of course, she has access to Semler slots. So if you're able to get those recovery slots on your team and transform them into Semler, and remember, she's an int captain, so you could use something like the Megalo ship to lock those slots. You can take them through multiple rooms. The enemy cannot change Semler slots. So you have that kind of going her way too. And you know, if you're ever low on HP, and if you see like a stage where there's a bunch of mobs, you can launch her versus special and essentially heal back all of your health. Because every time you kill something when her versus effect is active, you're healing back 15 times her recovery. And there has been plenty of instances where I've used it and I just get a full heal after killing a stage once using her versus effect. I think that's super good. However, outside of that, I have found her kind of just average. She's just kind of just a base 5 times captain with an attack special that can give me an orb boost in the following stage. And, you know, if I have recovery slots, you know, there's similar slots instead. Unless if you're running some other unit that can guarantee you recovery slots. Whereas with Kaido, you know, you don't really have to worry about getting any specific slot. You know, obviously you can use, like Odin, for example, as a sub. If you can get some matching slots like Stampede Buggy's great for either of these two, because you've got a driven captain, you get a full board of slots. You can use Odin to transform them into Wano slots. That is broken. Wano slots with Kaido, man. It's kind of nutty, dude. I love it. I've used that combination before. It is ridiculous. Even when you're attacking with type disadvantage, it don't matter. You know, you're just hitting so ridiculously hard, especially with versus effect active. Whereas with Big Mom, I don't think she has the same kind of synergy with some of the other OP legends in the game. Something to note though is that instead of Kaido boosting Strength Dex Int, she boosts Strength Cyan Int. So you can actually run a hybrid with like Luffy Sanji, for example. You can run a hybrid with Shanks Crew if you wanted to. You can run a hybrid with Roger. But then again with Kaido, you know, yeah, he can do hybrids, but double Kaido is still just as good. Double Big Mom can still work kind of good as well, but it depends on what type of content you're going up against. Sometimes you may need to require Big Mom's health. I'm talking about all these different effects. I'm kind of giving excuses for Big Mom, but I don't really think Big Mom is as good as Kaido. But then again, if you're up against high difficulty content that normal attacks only may be prevalent on, then Big Mom is definitely going to be more impressive compared to Kaido. But currently speaking, I do think Big Mom still deserves to be on this list. I'm probably going to leave her here. She's around this tier. Do I think Snakeman's better than Big Mom? I think I kind of do. Yeah, I think I'd do this, which means that, yeah, I think I'd do this. So I'd probably bump these characters down here. That's the way that I want to do it, because I want to keep tier 0 to only 5 characters. this is probably the way I would rank it right now in terms of, you know, number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6. I mean, Luffy, Sanji, and Shanks crew I think are kind of close. These two units are ridiculously close. Which one would I think is better? I think Luffy, Sanji is probably better because Luffy, Sanji have amazing supports, whereas Shanks crew kind of doesn't. He's only got like a couple of good supports you could really put on him. Whereas Kaido actually has a decent amount you can put on him now. Roger, he doesn't really need supports to be that good. He is already amazing. And then Snake Man is Snake Man. So I think that's probably how I'm going to leave the tier list for now. And as we move into the month of April, we'll see how things change. You know, potentially we'll get some new characters come out, and that may shift some of these characters around, but I'm super excited to see how this all goes. So that is going to wrap up this video today. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. Let me know down below in the comment section, do you think I should rank versus characters as the same unit? Or do you think that separating the two units to talk about them separately is the wise decision? Because I don't know how I'm going to do it from here on out, but you know, if I were going to combine them, I would have them here, and then that might save another spot for another character later on. Not really too sure, but hopefully you guys enjoyed this one, and if you guys did enjoy it, make sure you go ahead and leave a like, and if you want to stay up to date with all the content that I post, including more One Piece Treasure Cruise content, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below. But on that, guys, I'll see you guys within the next video.